So waggy.
Analyze the visual
A minute. A minutes.
Hello everyone, welcome to watch my Meet the Creator. I'm Difei. In the next 8 minutes, I'll take you through 2 reflections.
In part 1, I'll reflect on viral media potential of both my individual and group project. And in part 2, I'll reflect on what I've developed my teamwork and leadership skills as a team lead.
Let's go. So when I first started this module, I thought viral just meant a lot of views and likes.
But walking through the theory changed the idea for me.
Denisova argues that virality is not only about speed or scale, but also about emotion. And that became the main lens through which I reflected on both of my projects. In my individual video, which was an e-learning project for YouTube, I chose to explain Aristotle's triangle of persuasion through roleplay. My main question was simple. How do I make an abstract concept feel alive? I answered that by playing every character myself, including an unreliable investor, a persuasive mother, and even Aristotle with a beard filter. Looking back, this fit Neil and Hemsley's idea that content has to be remarkable and has to overcome the audience's resistance to sharing. The humor and novelty of the roleplay format were meant to make the theory feel memorable and worth passing on.
What I understand more clearly now
is that emotional impact is not the same as emotional arousal. In the pathos section, I used the polar bear images and sad music because I wanted the scene to feel moving. But Burger and Milkman show that high arousal emotions such as anger and anxiety are more likely to drive sharing, while sadness is less likely to do so. So although the section created empathy, it does not motivate people enough to want to share it. Even so, I still think the strongest part of the video was the contrast between the two versions of each scene. The unreliable investor and the more credible investor gave audiences an immediate comparison that was easy to remember. In that sense, the roleplay format was not just a stylistic choice. It was part of the video's viral logic because it made the theory feel surprising, clear, and worth talking about. My group project, Your Voice Matters, was different because it was a digital activism campaign for shelter. The strongest creative point was authenticity. The series was built around real housing experiences and had a clear social purpose, which made it feel less like a performance and more like socially meaningful communication. As Denisova argues, viral communication can also spread the progressive ideas, not just attention-grabbing content, and that helped me see our project as more than a campaign video. This is also where the first-person handheld perspective mattered. We used it to make the viewer feel the discomfort from inside the situation rather than just observing it from outside.
I wanted the audience to feel the weight of climbing stairs every day or the anxiety of hearing a stranger knock at the door.
Because we moved from YouTube to TikTok, we also had to adjust the pacing and use a stronger hook. So authenticity, emotional urgency, and platform-specific editing all worked together to make the videos more shareable.
Comparing the two projects, now I see they represent two different viral logics.
My individual video depended on the surprise of seeing theory performed rather than explained, while the group project bet on emotional urgency and authenticity, rooted in real experience and the real social cause. Burger and Milkman help explain why the Shelter series may have stronger sharing potential because high arousal emotions such as anger and anxiety are more likely to drive transmission, which the category is right fit with housing injustice sit squarely. But the comparison also raised the question that existing theory does not fully answer. If we adapt content to suit the specific platform, does that make it more effective or less authentic? I think that is a gap worth investigating.
Moving into part 2, I want to reflect on what leading this group project taught me about what leadership really means when things get uncomfortable. I had experience of taking on leadership role before, but I had never really questioned what a good leader looks like. This project changed that.
Goldman argues that effective leaders do not rely on just one style, but adapt their approach depending on the situation. When the group project began, I wanted to lead as democratically as possible, especially because we were friends. I did not want to be bossy, so I said I would rather be a leading name. I could handle the basic tasks like dividing work, managing time, and keeping everything on track. But I also hoped the group would naturally step up and share the decision making. Looking back, this was a fairly classic democracy approach in Goldman's terms, and for a group of work friends who already know each other, it worked reasonably well at first. And it also fits in what Bergman etc. describe as shared leadership, where multiple members contribute to leading the team, and their research shows it tends to produce less conflict, greater consensus, and higher trust. However, it's too ideal to achieve in practice.
The balance shifted when a fifth member was added after the official group list came out. Trust became fragile early, and what followed was a period I now recognize as a leadership failure.
After she missed a workshop where we had planned the shooting schedule, no one updated her, and she only found out about the shoot 3 days before through a group announcement I made about borrowing equipment.
At that moment, I just realized I really stopped treating her as a full team member. The communication breakdown was not just her fault, it was mine.
Goldman warns that the democracy style becomes problematic when a team needs clear direction. It can leave people feeling confused and without structure. That was exactly what had happened. To take the team lead's responsibility, I asked for a series of one-on-one communications with every group members after filming. I explained the communication gaps, acknowledged that excluding someone from planning had been unfair, and made clear that I wanted to approach the editing phase differently. As Bergman etc. argue, consideration behaviors such as being supportive, ensuring all members' perspectives are heard, are core components of effective leadership. What changed was not just my attitude, but my understanding of my own role. I stopped trying to be a minimal leader and started thinking more carefully about what each person actually needed from me. By that point, I tended to transform my leader style into authoritative as one that mobilizes people toward a vision while giving them the freedom to find their own way. During the post-production period, I mapped out each person's strengths. For instance, A and I had the most editing experience, B was strongest on writing work, C can support B well, and the new member took on an earlier editing role where she could contribute meaningfully.
Leadership, what I've learned, was not about being in charge of everything. It was about putting the right people into the right role and making sure everyone felt included.
On time management, I also made a deliberate choice not to be democratic. I built buffer time into every stage. For example, the submission deadline was 20th April, and I set that as our internal target even though I knew we had a 7-day extension available, because I knew if I had to loosen the deadline and everyone relaxed, any further delay would have left us with no room to recover. In the end, we did use the extension, but for polishing rather than catching up. That had been the plan all along.
Looking back, the most important thing I learned is that the leadership style is not fixed identity. It's floating. It is a choice you make in response to what the situation actually needs.
I started out as a democratic leader who let personal biases override professional responsibility, and ended up learning to lead in a way that was more authoritative in direction, but more inclusive in process.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe when you want to see more content like this.